Hi there. This is Terica McClendon with Ringer Employment Solutions. And in today's class, we're going to be talking, you got it, the big interview. Interviews are one of the most important components to getting that dream job. So I wrote down a few different types of interviews for you, and I want you too to take notes. Okay? You have 4 different types that we're going to discuss today. That first interview might be your phone interview. The second kind of interview are your one-on-one interviews. Next, a working interview. And last, a video interview. So let's dive in and talk about all 4. On your phone interview, this is a screening so that the employer can get an opportunity to talk to you, to see how you sound. You may be over in another part of the city. This makes it a little bit more convenient. So, here's some components that I want you to consider for that phone interview. Be well prepared. Never conduct a phone interview in the car or in traffic or in a noisy public area. Be sure to conduct that interview in a quiet space so that you can focus solely on that interview and the questions that you're asked. Now, if they call you and you're not in a quiet place, ask them to schedule a different time, maybe later in the day or later in the week. Sometimes employers, they'll call without an appointment. They know to be flexible. All you have to do is just ask. Let's talk about your one-on-one interviews. The one-on-one interviews are most common. This gives the interviewer time to meet you face-to-face, a time for you to build a rapport. This is actually the easiest setting to build a rapport with the interviewer, so you must be prepared. Make sure that you don't slack off because you never know. You may not be meeting with the actual decision maker, but make sure that your interview is so good that you're able to be passed on to the next phase of the interview. A working interview. This is where an employer may ask you to come in so that you can show off your skills and so that they can see how you're actually able to function and perform in their work environment and in the position of choice. The next is your video interview. The video interview uses technology such as webcams and Skype. With this interview, you want to make sure that you're always prepared and that your signal is strong and that your internet connection is intact so that you don't have any complications in this interview. In all interview situations, the key to success is good preparation. The more effort you put into the interview, the better the chances are that you will succeed and grab that dream job. Hello, and welcome back to class with me, Terica McClendon with Ringer Employment Solutions. In our last video class on interviews, we spoke all about the components of an interview and different kinds of interviews. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the questions. So you want to get, again, pen and paper to get this down. This is good stuff. So you have 2 different kinds of interview questions. The first kind are your typical questions. Second would be your behavioral interviews. So let's dive right in. Typical questions start with the first question almost on any interview is tell me about yourself. And in order to answer that question, see our video on elevator pitch. The second question, why do you want to work here? This is a question that's always asked. And with this question, just remember to do research on your position and the company. Another question that you might want to consider and keep in mind that they might ask is your salary requirement. This too, do your research, figure out what the position is paying and stay within the ballpark. Another question would be your short-term goals. For this question, I would choose goals that are within scope of 1 year or less. Another question would be, when can you start? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And why did you leave your last job? Now, let's get right over to our behavioral interview questions. What is a behavioral interview question, you might be thinking? Well, let me answer that question for you. A behavioral interview question are questions simply asked to gain a sense of your behavior in a given situation. Think about this question. What is your typical way of dealing with conflict? Give an example. Another question for you to think about is, tell me about a time when you were able to successfully deal with another person, even when that individual may not have personally cared for you. A third question, tell me about a difficult decision you've made within the last year. That's a tough one. Give me an example of a time when you tried something and you did not accomplish it. You failed. Last question for you to consider. Give me an example of a time when you showed initiative and you took the lead. For answers to these questions, head over to ringeremployment.com. Stay tuned. We're going to talk in our next class about interviews. What do you do to prepare before, during, and after the interview? I'll see you in class. This is Terica McClendon with Ringer Employment Solutions, and I'm back. We're talking interviews. In our first video, we spoke about the different kinds of interviews. Our second video, we talked all about the different interview questions. And in this video, we're talking about how to prepare, what to do before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. So let's jump straight in. Before the interview, be sure to brush up on your skills. What skills, you might ask? Well, a few examples of the skills that we think will be good for you to brush up on would be your typing skills, the knowledge of software, and your communication skills, of course. Be sure not to do the things that we all do, roll your eyes or to smack your lips. Those are things that you want to make sure, or say make sure that you brush up on those things and you practice not doing those things before the interview. Now, here are a few things that you might want to bring to the interview. For sure, bring your resume and bring more than one copy. I always suggest to bring at least 3 copies of your resume. Bring your social security card, your IDs, any certificates and licenses that you might have, transcripts, and of course, bring a list of references, at least 5 references. And be sure that those references are mostly professional references. Next, review the questions that are most asked that we discussed in the last video and write down your responses to those questions and practice. Next, be on time for the interview, at least 15 minutes early. And if you can be earlier than that, why not? You never know what's going to happen. And again, you just want to be prepared. Now, what do you do during the interview? Well, during the interview, what's most important is not just what you say, but it's about the nonverbals. So, the nonverbals that you want to think about is to make sure that you give that interviewer a very firm handshake. You also want to make sure that you make good eye contact. You want to make sure that you're honest and that you're natural and that you show confidence, and to make sure that you sit up straight and you look enthusiastic the entire time. Now, you want to make sure that you convey the right attitude. Show them that you're willing to work. Tell that interviewer that you're flexible, you are eager to learn, and that you are dependable. Make sure at the end that you summarize that you were qualified for the position. Make sure that you ask questions. Ask the interviewer when the job is expected to be filled and when they should contact you back with a decision. These are always good things to remember during the interview. Ask the interviewer for a business card and be sure to thank that interviewer for their time and for the opportunity to meet with them. After the interview, what should I do? Let's talk about it. For an extra added touch, Always send that interviewer a thank you card. Last but not least, restate the purpose of you being there, restate the interest in the position and your qualifications. When you go home, analyze yourself. Reflect on that interview. Reflect on that time with the interviewer. See if you did all the things that we've discussed. If you did, I'm sure you'll get that job. Stay tuned for more videos.